Afternoon, everyone. Trevlin Pillay here. I'm an automation engineer from Standard Bank, and I'm going to tell you a story and take you on a journey on how we are in the process of automating one of our payment engines. So for those of you that don't know, Standard Bank is the largest bank in Africa, and we've been around for over 150 years. Now, I was going to add the fact that 150 years of legacy, but after Adam's talk, I decided to just retract that. So in South Africa, financial services make up around 20% of our country's GDP. So this particular payment engine that I'm speaking about does real-time settlements. So we're talking about high-value payments. So in a general setting, like our normal bank accounts that everyone in the room is like low value, but high volume. In this world, we're talking about 10 to like 100 million rand on an average payment. So these are very, very large payments. The system is very critical. It's probably the bank's top 5 most critical system within the bank. And it's amazing how this not small, but rather this system plays a big part in that 20% GDP mark. So this system is so critical that if it had to go down, we sit in this position over here, a catastrophe. And essentially what this means is that we could crash the market, we could potentially bring the economy to a halt. So just reflect on that a little bit. So it's a system within the bank that if it went down, not only would it affect Standard Bank's reputation, but it would affect South Africa as a whole and bring it to a halt. So I want to dive into the technical parts as soon as possible. So what did we do? We built chef cookbooks. So we're on a journey. Our chef journey is about a year or two old. And essentially, if you look here, we sit on Linux virtual machines. We've got something called a base server. And essentially, this is the server that basically makes the virtual machine bank bold. So it ensures that the server is secure. It adds all the certificates. It also adds everything we need for the server to be bank bold. We then added our application server. So these are all the cookbooks that we wrote. So we really looked to the community for this. And the bottom stack is more the community cookbooks. But really the magic here is in the custom cookbooks that we wrote for this. So this payment engine that we're talking about is a vendor application. So this is where the first technical challenge came about, because we don't have an API to interface directly with. So the Reserve Bank has given us about 20 minutes to recover from any sort of incident. And for us, to do this manually could take anywhere from like a week to 2 weeks, depending on the weather, depending on a whole range of different parameters. It could take us even up to a month to bring the system up. So really, we had to automate. We were in a position where we implementing a new system, which is the vendor system, and we had no choice. We had to automate to reach 20 minutes. Even with automation, that's still cutting it fine. So really, the value here is for us, and we've been on a chef journey for about a year and a half, 2 years or so, and what we had to do was we had to build a custom configuration for this particular application. It wasn't like traditionally you think you'd buy a piece of software and you'd click a button or something and it's like deployed. It's really not the case. There's a lot that went into it. And without Chef, I don't know how we would have accomplished this. We've tried a couple of other tools and techniques, and we weren't really getting the level of consistency that Chef gave us with this. So we built, so this is for every environment. So depending whether you dev, whether you in staging or in production, you'd run the same cookbook and it would pick up your using environments for this. And long story short, we went from a process where it would take up to, say, call it a month to deploy the system, and now it's taking 11 minutes. So I'd just like to take you through the sequence of events before we got here. And I'll get that, and I'll go through that just now. We're also using InSpec for some of our testing, and as well as Sensu and Chef Compliance. But we're on a journey. This is the first iteration for this. And for this particular application, we with the actual app deploy, we're using Jenkins. We are looking to Habitat, but as I said, this is the first iteration. So in the bank, we've got something called Skynet. Skynet is an API that we use to build virtual machines. But the nice thing about Skynet is that we give it one request, and we tell it, Skynet, can you build me a server? Can you also bootstrap it to the Chef server for me? As well as we give it a run list. So we give it all the cookbooks that we basically need to run. So with one request, we build a server, it's bootstrapped, and after the converge, hopefully it's green, and you're all good to go. And really, from the environment that we come from, this alone is just, it's magic. And a lot of the times, this is live in production right now. And a few weeks ago, we had to make a change, and we had to rebuild the environment. And we did the same thing. We rebuilt the server, one request, and we sat there and we're like, wow, this is really magic, well, for us at least. But technically, this is simple, right? And I'm sure a lot of you sitting here, well, okay, yeah, we wrote some cookbooks, and, you know, this is really, really simple, okay? Well, the hardest part for us, or the most challenging part for us, was the fact that we didn't have an API from a vendor perspective. So the vendor gave us a whole lot of scripts, and it was corn shell scripts, and a lot of the times it didn't have a silent option. So when you're trying to automate something and something's prompting you every time, you find it quite challenging. So we had to resort to things like the expect library, and we bundled that all together. But in any case, we're sitting in a position now where we're able to rebuild our environments in just under 11 minutes. We use Jenkins to come in and deploy the ER file, the WAR file, and we've got an application up and running. And this is a payments engine that's supporting basically our entire continent, if not. So the biggest challenge technically was actually interfacing with the vendor and using the expect library. But technically speaking, this is the simple part. The biggest challenge that we faced was actually this year. And I'm sure most organizations across the world are also facing the similar thing. For those of you that don't know, this is the shadow monster from Stranger Things. And for us, technically, it was all good. But I had to constantly prove to people why we need automation. I had to constantly prove to them why a payments engine needs automation. Like, you would think, you know, this was like, you know, simple, but really, this was really challenging for us. And remember, we're coming from an environment where this is all new to us. So a lot of the times, the teams felt like automation was extra work for them. And they didn't realize that you do it once, and you support it along the way, and it will take you all the way into the future. And there comes a time where you need to rebuild, and you're able to rebuild. And it's not going to take you 2 weeks or 3 weeks to do this. But a lot of organizations are facing the same thing. A lot of large organizations are facing the same thing. And the reason why I used the shadow monster was it's this looming monster that's causing chaos in a lot of organizations across the world. So how did we deal with this challenge? And, you know, what did we do to overcome the cultural and people aspects that companies all around the world are facing? We ran Dojos. So we adopted this from Target's model. And for us, a dojo is an accelerated learning journey with a set MVP and vision. It's a process whereby we run 3-day sprints, and we run 10 of them. So every 3 days is one sprint, and emphasis on acceleration here. And within one sprint, we still have sprint planning, we still have retro, showcasing, as well as daily stand-ups. So the whole point here was to set out this vision. So for us, in the beginning, the vision was to automate our application infrastructure and our application deployment. So right now, our databases are not automated. It's held by a separate team within the bank. We are still looking into databases, and I'm happy to have a chat with anyone after the talk with regards to that. But the whole point of the Dojo model was we co-located everyone required to achieve the set vision or MVP. We put them all into one room, not one room, into a creative space, but we took them out of their current spaces. And it was so amazing to see that people in the same organization would communicate via mail, but have never ever actually met each other. And we got together the business. We all in one space. We had the business, we had security, we had infrastructure, we had the application teams, we had the automation teams. And we all co-located. And you know what? It was amazing to see the personal relationships that people had created with each other. And once again, technology is technology. But you can't just have technology. You need orchestration. You need people and you need culture to bring it all together. So having run these dojos, it went on for about 2 months. After the 2-month period, we went live into production. It was like 2 months or 3 months after that. So there was a process whereby we had to refactor a lot of the things that we did. But let's just understand this, right? We took people that have never even heard about Chef before. We co-located them, and in 2 months, they took a payments engine into production, right? A payments engine that's contributing to 20% to the country's gross domestic product. Now, we're going to just reflect on that a bit and just understand the impact that that has on not just on Standard Bank and South Africa, but the larger community here at ChefConf as well. So for us, the dojo model really works, and we've tried it. And like if you listen to Adam's talk, he spoke about the path of least resistance, right? So you can go through, when his daughter was learning how to ride the bike, there's the hell route or there's the accelerated route. So for us, when we run dojos, it's the same concept. You know, we can't expect teams to to drive this themselves, because they've got their own things that they need to do, and it's you're under cost constraints and resource constraints. So just like how Adam's daughter initially had the hell route when he tried to teach her, it's a similar concept here. So we take in teams, and in 2 months, people who have never even heard of Chef before, they're writing Chef cookbooks, and this model works. We've tried it and it works, and once again, it's all about learning, right? And this is quite awesome. So what didn't work, right? So yeah, we got a system into production, and we ran this dojo in 2 months. We had this accelerated learning journey, but what did not work, right? We got a system into production. Surely something did work, right? But what did not work? So after we ran the dojo, people, all the application teams, infrastructure, security, they all went back into their own spaces. And what started happening was that they started breaking all the principles and all the engineering principles that we had taught them in the dojo. So things like, small things like, like clear commit messages, as small as that, all the way to, how do you consistently push things through your pipeline? How do you support your pipeline? And it's inevitable, right? Every large organization is still suffering with this sort of culture crisis. And, there's that shadow monster that's still there. And you can't just wake up and, overnight expect the monster to just disappear. There's not legacy, there's heritage, if you put it that way. And there's still the older way of doing things. And this here is also, Adam spoke about the confidence gap, and I'm happy and proud to stand here and say that that's probably why this didn't work. But we are pushing the boundaries. We are breaking the corporate culture, and we're pushing the boundaries. We're taking people out of their spaces, and through the dojo model, we're having fun, and that was the most important thing. We have fun. We went for team lunches and drinks, and you could have the most engineered product or the most engineered solution from a chef perspective, but without the people, without the culture, if you don't have a culture that fosters collaboration and autonomous teams, you're not going to get very far. So a chef can only take you to a certain extent, and you can rebuild your environment in 11 minutes, but to actually push a change to a payment engine, there's a whole lot of different things that need to happen from a process perspective as well. And that's some of the learnings that we faced. So this is the team behind some of the magic that's happening here. All of them could not make it. One of them is sitting right here, Bianca Swartz. And basically what we do is we go around the bank and we run dojos, especially in the corporate investment banking space. And I'm talking about back-end systems. I'm talking about systems that keep our economy up. And we run these dojos, these accelerated learning journeys for teams to get them to a point of satisfaction. Because, you can't just give them chef and tell them go learn chef and then, get it into production. You need to have this process whereby you get them to the point of, oh, wow, that's really cool. And, we all techies at the end of the day. And, you put them into a room and you show them how, just a simple resource of like even creating a file, just getting that satisfaction. We saw a lot of value from that. But really, the whole point here, and this goes to the people on the YouTube stream as well, is that how are we going to push the barriers even more, especially in the financial services domain? Because we're coming from an area that's predominantly still risk averse, but I mean, especially in a payments engine space. But we need to constantly push the barrier. And how can we all come together and collaborate together to contribute to strengthening our financial systems? Our financial systems run the world. Without it, it all still comes down to some form of monetary value. And it's how do we all come together and contribute to that? And just from being at ChefConf, this is my first ChefConf, by the way, and it's the first time speaking at any conference. So, Nathan, thanks for making that happen. But it's but if the one thing that I did learn from being here is that the community is so strong, and that's what this is all about. It's the community and coming together. And I just want to say that, for anyone that's from the chef community here that's been contributing to code, I just want to say that that line of code that you've contributed has contributed to that 20% GDP mark that's keeping our country up. Kind of. So, in concluding, break it, build it, change it. I challenge every single one of you here. Break it. How did we break it? We took people out of their comfort zones, and we created a creative space for them. How did we build it? Through the dojo model, we built a production deployment pipeline. How are we changing it? We're empowering people, and we're creating autonomous teams. So once again, I challenge every single one of you here and everyone on the YouTube stream. Push the boundaries. Break it, build it, change it. Thank you very much.